No, we're not. Yes, we are. We are live. Okay.
We are live.
So-
it's alive.
There's
So,
only
welcome.
three of us. What time is it?
Oh, probably about 9 o'clock.
No.
It was 8:30 not too long ago. It's 8:43.
8:43.
Okay.
We
So-
were supposed to be down here at 8:15.
Yep. Okay, so here we are. Welcome to meeting number 346 of the Harpooners of the Sea Uniform, the St. Charles Sherlock
Sea
Holmes Society.
uniform?
Uniform, right.
Unicorn. Yes, it's no longer a case of we're getting old. We are old, we're getting older.
On young.
And the more you hang out with us, the worse off
Yes,
you get.
I know. I'm looking for my hearing aid now. So anyway, our story this month is the Wisteria Lodge, and we'll get to that in a few moments. But as always, we start off with the toast to the Queen. And that will be read and given by Mr. J. Tom Crammond.
Okay.
And we'll probably need to back up a little bit. We can cut off your
Good.
head.
That's good. To Her Imperial Majesty Victoria, by the grace of God and of the United Kingdom of Great Britain, Ireland, and of our other realms and territories. Queen, Empress of India, Defender of the Faith, long may she reign. God
save the Queen. Hear, hear. All right. So once again, welcome to meeting number 346 of the Harpooners. And let's see if I can find my notes again and get started here. So our story this month is Wisteria Lodge, W-I-S-T, The Adventure of Wisteria Lodge. Our next meeting will be Friday, 16 November. We'll be starting, hopefully we'll start meeting for dinner at 1851. That's 651 for you landlubbers here at PO's. Our story will be The Adventure of the Cardboard Box, or CARD. Our presenter will hopefully be Rob Rath, who was supposed to have our secondary today. Didn't get that, but we got our primary. We'll get to that moment. We are still in need of papers and presentations for the rest of His Last Bow. We've hopefully got next month of Cardboard Box. Somebody's considering the Blue Carbuncle, but it wouldn't hurt to get a secondary in. And of course, we'll have the Adventure of the Red Circle in January 18. Be the perfect time for a Red Circle party now that we're actually meeting at an Italian restaurant. He was good enough to bring up, we just make sure it's a pepperoni pizza. All those red circles in it. Made sense to me at the time.
Right.
And let's see, somebody is texting, send you a corrected copy. I hope you're watching this because, unfortunately, the
Well, you can
email...
post the corrected one.
Well, I can post the corrected one. We'll just be reading the incorrect one now because it's all on my phone, and I just sent a copy of the old one to his email address so we can read it off of his phone because we're recording this on my phone. So, recording and broadcasting.
I got my phone if you wanted to pick it up.
Well, that means that she'd have to send it to your address. Do we want to give that out on the air?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No, I thought you were going live over the...
We are live over the internet right now. I just got a text from her while it was going on.
From who?
From Claudia.
Oh.
That she had a corrected copy.
No.
So, if you're listening, if you have his email address, send that copy to him.
No, I'm just saying. No, I'm... Oh.
Or not.
Okay, she's good.
So anyway, Red Circle, Yep, so we got the sign-up sheet for it, right? Also, Parallel Case of St. Louis, their next meeting will be Saturday, the 10th of November at the Schlafly branch of the St. Louis Public Library. They will be observing The Adventure of the Glorious Scott, which, by the Baring Gould chronology, is the first adventure of Sherlock Holmes, at least narrated by him especially. Don't forget about their new website where you can get more information about their history, where and when they're meeting, and links of interest. Going to Parallel Case STL, one word, at .wixsite.com.
I spell Wix.
With letters. WIXSITE for
Wix.
Wix site. Okay, let's see. Thoughts from other stuff. We're still hoping to be celebrating Holmes' 165th birthday on his real birthday, April the 5th, which is a Friday this next year. We're still getting stuff together for that, including an additional blog site to go with our whaling news and the Harpooners WordPress sites to show off stuff about his birthday. Reprinting a paper that Bill Cochran did earlier this year, further going into why Holmes's birthday is April the 5th and not January the 6th, which is actually somebody else's brother's birthday right after Prohibition. Also talking about doing a Red Circle party when we have our Red Circle book in January. And let's see, I think that's it. Is there any other old business or new business we need to bring up? Anybody can think of?
No.
Okay. Then let's see. I did the toast to Watson last month, so I probably better do the toast to Holmes.
Yeah, I think
So-
I did the toast to Holmes last month.
I could be wrong. It's been known to. Yeah, it might have been. So we'll trade. So to Holmes, who most of the time cannot be bested, unless it's by a woman or somebody from one of the counties.
Here.
Okay. Can you pull up that email? And hopefully it's still there. Okay. So we had the potential for 2 papers on Wisteria Lodge this month. One of them, well, neither of the people made it, unfortunately, but at least one of them sent it by email. Ooh, it looks like we've got some people. Ooh, we got 2 people live. All right. Claudia is watching. Hi, Claudia. In case you just started watching, got your text about how you sent a corrected email. Unfortunately, the phone I'd be getting it from is what we're recording from and broadcasting. And I think I found out who the second person is that's on there. Cool.
No, I'm not watching.
You're
Why
not?
would I watch?
Oh,
What
you?
video is this?
Well, I'd have to show you some other
Okay,
time.
all
It's
right.
okay. So, but anyway, our presentation this month is from Miss Claudia O'Reilly, and let's see. It is called "We All Have Our Own Little Ways." If you have some corrections to throw on there, you might try and comment them, and hopefully we'll pick them up one way or the other here. So, we all have our little ways. It reads. Devotees of the Canon know that the narratives that Watson wrote about Sherlock Holmes were written to showcase his unique abilities and adeptness at solving criminal or scandalous cases that were brought to him. We know that his opinion of the English police force was not very highly rated. It appears from most of the cases that none of them could not disentangle their way out of a paper bag. Holmes once remarked in The Adventure of the Cardboard Box, that's next month by the way, that although Lestrade had almost no skill at actual crime solving, his tenacity and determination are what brought him to the highest ranks in the official police force. In truth, he was already well established as a respected policeman with 20 years in the force before a study in Scarlet. Sherlock considers Lestrade and Gregson the best of the bad lot, both quick and energetic but conventional, shockingly so. Despite his disdain for Lestrade, whatever, single-mindedness, Holmes grows to have an affection for the detective. In The Hound of the Baskervilles, Holmes comments to Dr. Watson that Lestrade is the best of the professionals, the Scotland Yard professionals. Holmes also declares that Tobias Gregson to be the smartest of the Scotland Yarders, but given Holmes' opinion of the Scotland Yard detectives, this is not sweeping praise. Gregson is mentioned as behaving callous and cool. Of all the Yarders, Gregson comes the closest to meeting Sherlock Holmes on intellectual grounds, although he admits that he always feels more confident when Holmes aids him in a case. Unlike Holmes, he is bound with the confines of the law he serves, but unlike Lestrade, Gregson overlooks the little gray areas of the law, such as in The Adventure of the Greek Interpreter, where he overlooks Holmes's breaking of a window in order to enter premises and saves the life of a friend of Mycroft Holmes by his minor criminal act. Gregson last appears in Doyle's The Adventure of the Red Circle, where Watson observes that our official detectives may blunder in the matter of intelligence, but never in that of courage.
Right.
Okay. It is in the adventure of Wisteria Lodge that Gregson introduces Holmes and Watson to the character of Inspector Baines of the Surrey Police Constabulary. I like that. Surrey Police Constabulary. There's a bunch of $5,000 words for your $20 sentences right there. And in this character, we finally have an English official that is the equal to matching wits with our beloved detective. In fact, Holmes compliments him 3 times early on in the story. The first time is when Holmes tells him what a careful examination Baines did of Wisteria Lodge that led to the discovery of a note to Garcia in the fire grate. The second is the thorough exam of said note. And the third is when Holmes tells Watson that Baines is excellent in the way he is prompt and businesslike, in the way he is prompt and his businesslike way in handling the investigation. Holmes tells Baines that his powers seem superior to his opportunities in Surrey. When they begin the investigation, Holmes asks if he needs any assistance, but Baines says he would like to work on his own. Holmes has made his mark and reputation, and Baines would like to make his. It would be a feather in his hat if he was able to make it without the assistance of the renowned Holmes. After all, they each have their own little ways of discovering the truth. Holmes agrees, and they both set out on their own courses. While Holmes looks for the murderer of Garcia in the many large estates surrounding the area on the ground, Baines is up a tree watching a particular house and watching Holmes run around the grounds. Baines uses one of Sherlock's ruses of announcing that he has captured and arrested the cook as the murderer of Garcia. This emboldens Don Murillo, this is Spanish, to flee as he feels that he and his associates are no longer under suspicion. Holmes even goes to Baines and tells him he is on the wrong track and wanting to give him advice as to not make the inspector look foolish when Holmes apprehends the correct murderer. But Baines will have none of it, and again he remarks that they each have their own little way of doing things, leaving Sherlock quite confused. When Don Murillo is finally caught by an associate of Holmes, a Surrey officer is there to take him in and aid in the release of the governess. Holmes is shocked that Baines knew all along that the cook wasn't the criminal, and did that only to flesh out the real murderer. Holmes' last compliment to Baines is to tell him, "You will rise high in your profession. You have instinct and intuition." Why, of all the cases that Watson recorded, would he include Wisteria Lodge? It does nothing to show off the many talents of Sherlock. In fact, it makes him look more like Lestrade and Gregson than the legendary Sherlock Holmes. Baines explores the home, decides that Garcia was murdered at 1 o'clock, uses Scott Eccles as an alibi, finds the note, deduces almost all of the info from the note, discovers who Don Murillo really is, spies on the house, arrests the wrong suspect as a ruse, and is there to arrest Don Murillo as he tries to flee and saves the governess, Miss Burnett. All that Holmes can deduce is that the murderer lives near Wisteria Lodge, and in a big house, needs an alibi for something sinister, spends 5 days running around looking for clues. Holmes and Watson aren't even there to save Miss Burnett. His associate is there for that. So why is this story included in the canon? Surely not to showcase Holmes' skills. I think it was included to show that his ideas and methodology was catching on finally. There were police officers taking note of what he was accomplishing and copying his methods to get a better handle on the criminal element in England, to have better arrest records and arrest the right person for the crime. This story shows that even in the counties such as Surrey, they had heard of the name and methods of Sherlock Holmes. The story also shows that there were other individuals with the superior instinct, intuition, and knowledge of Sherlock Holmes, that Sherlock Holmes wasn't an anomaly, and the methods he applied could be used by others if they tried. What a lasting tribute to a man than to have his methods copied and applied by others trying to bring justice to a corrupt world. And thus ends,
You're here.
thus ends, we all have our little ways. Let's give her a big round. Big round of applause. There we go.
Thank you, Claudia.
Yes, thank you. Before we get to the next stuff, let's go ahead and do the toast to Dr. Watson, the biographer, and Mr. Michael Bragg to do that.
To Watson. Without his interpretation of the stories and adventures and putting them down on paper, we wouldn't even know about Holmes. And he was a pretty good dog too. Here, here.
God save the Queen. All right. So, time for some discussion on Wisteria.
Somebody pop up at the bottom.
Oh, comment. Unfortunately, I got to go over there and see if I can read it.
Here.
Well, that might help a little too, borrowing your cheaters.
We need a pair of binoculars so we can.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, let's see. Tom Campbell. Cheers. Tom Campbell from North Carolina, if I remember correctly. All right. Good to see you also.
Quit turning that to make Tom look small and me look like a giant. You got it cockeyed there.
You're just using giant as an adjective. You forgot to add something to that. So anyway, let's see. Discussion. I find it interesting. This is a two-part story. Oh, and there's another comment. I hate it when that happens. And Claudia has a comment. I'm going to have to go over there. Going to make me get up and read all this stuff.
There was one before that. Now there's another
There's
one.
quite a few there. So let's see here. Get a good look at me. Okay. Let's see. Cheers. Good paper. Claudia, that was Mr. Campbell who said you had a good paper. Said, thank you, Andrew. Sounds good. You even fixed my mistakes. Good. Actually, good and good. I love typos. Okay. Let's see. We can get this back on here. Thank you for joining us so we can say we have more people here, sort of.
Right.
All right. See if we can leave this alone for a little bit. All right. So it's a story in two parts, much like, it's organized in the same vein as a stud. I can't read that. Okay. Organized the same way as A Study in Scarlet and The Valley of Fear, but being a short story, it doesn't meet the attempted epic qualities of those two novellas.
Right.
So, not exactly sure why he divvied it up into two big sections
Right.
of the singular experience of Mr. John Eccles,
Right.
John Scott Eccles, and The Tiger of San Pedro.
Right, and then Strand did it in 2 different months. They did they, 2 different editions.
Yeah, I think that was something that was brought up here in the, let's see, in the summary. It was apparently published in 1 volume in Collier's magazine in the United States on 15 August of 1908, and in the Strand magazine in the UK in September and October in the same year.
2 issues.
In fact,
This being in October,
and this
you
being
can count out the years, get your
Yep.
calculator out.
110. Even I can do that math. It's only 20% of a fourth.
Arithmetic.
Yeah,
It's an inside joke.
that's an inside joke. We won't go into that right now. So here's the summary in general of The Adventure of Wisteria Lodge, in case you haven't read it, folks. John Scott Eccles, a proper English gentleman, visits Holmes to tell him about the grotesque events of the previous night. While Eccles is talking to Holmes, Inspector Gregson and Baines arrive to tell them that the corpse of an Aloysius Garcia has been found on a common near Wisteria Lodge with his head smashed. The policeman found the invitation he sent to Eccles in his pocket, and making him a possible suspect. They also found a letter Garcia had received and crumbled the previous night, written in a woman's handwriting, which Eccles attests to when he tells his version of the events from the night before. He had been invited to visit Wisteria Lodge by Aloysius Garcia, a man that he slightly knew, who seemed to work for the Spanish embassy. His host seemed preoccupied all evening, and his mood worsened when he received a note that he crumpled and threw out. Later, when Scott Eccles was in bed, Garcia came to his room to ask why he rang at 1 in the morning, although being that he was asleep, he obviously had not. When he woke up in the morning, Eccles was stunned to find that everyone had vanished. It is up to Holmes, with Watson in tow and with the help of Inspector Baines, to determine what brought about the death of Aloysius Garcia and the disappearance of his domestic staff, and whatever other repercussions may be involved. I am obviously not going into more detail about because I'm avoiding spoilers, except, we've already told the ending. This summary is adapted from the summary given in the Arthur Conan Doyle Encyclopedia, by the way, which is where these days, whenever you want to read the story, if you want to do it online, you can access links to all the stories from our Harpooners, from harpooners.wordpress.com, and even some links from the Whaling News newsletter at whalingnews.wordpress.com.
Not the.
Correct. Not the. Okay. So, let's see. Now, one question I had coming into this is, why couldn't there have been more made out of Inspector Henry Baines? Henry is just a guess. I think it was like among the top 10 most used English names in England about that time. There's no record in the canon or anywhere else that his first name was Henry. I just threw that out there and figured
you have two Spanish type guys, and Enrique is Henry.
Okay, I'll buy that. Any thoughts on that?
No.
Okay.
I'll go with that. I mean, unless you want to go with Harold.
Yeah. I think that was one of the ideas I threw out there too. But turns out I found on a website, www.schoolandhomes.com. There's a little thing here, /canonical.html, where it lists a bunch of the Sherlockian pastiches that have been done over the years. And it lists, in fact, in this section I got it from, it lists all the characters from all these pastiches. And it turns out that Inspector Baines has been in some of the pastiches. It shows that he was in Wisteria Lodge, of course. There's The Case of the Previous Tenant by Ian Eddington. The Singular Affair of Mr. Philip Phot, P-H-O-T. And looks like that is from a group called the Greek Interpreters of East Lansing. There's a story called The Flat Top Desk by Alan Stockwell, excuse me.
German coming out.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And then there's The Adventure of the Hanging Tyrant by M.J. Eliot. And there's also a mention of Sherlock Holmes and the Servants of Hell by Paul Kane. So this is all from a page called Historical and Fictional Characters in Sherlockian Pastiches. So, some things to think about. Why couldn't we see more of Baines, dude? That's more on my other notes on the other side.
Well, let me see. Here's a quote here why we might not have seen him. Holmes says to him at one point, "I must congratulate you, Inspector, on handling so distinctive and instructive a case. Your powers, if I may say so without offense, seem superior to your opportunities."
I seem to remember hearing that one too.
Yeah, and so what it is obviously where Baines hung out, there wasn't that much that happened. This was maybe the pinnacle or his zenith.
Yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me of one of the earlier episodes of CSI. It's like a lot of times they always seem to put down country folk and stuff like that. And there was one episode I vaguely remember where Grisham had to go out to investigate a crime scene. But it was in, somebody left a comment there. I might check it in a few. Anyway, he was investigating a crime scene in one of the more rural counties around Las Vegas, which I think is where most of CSI takes place, if I remember. I have not watched it in a very long time. And he gets out there, and he doesn't have, if they even had a crime scene investigate, a CSI unit, they weren't very well stocked. In fact, he had to go so far as to purchase leads for mechanical pencils and grind them up so they could make some graphite to get fingerprint impressions and stuff. And it's like, yeah, showed his.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah, showed his
Ingenuity.
Ingenuity. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. But it
was
made
right here, sitting right there.
Thank you. Yes, but it made the folks in the country look just bad and pathetic and backwater. So, I think that may have been what may have been wanted to start with in Wisteria Lodge, but ended up showing what a brainy guy the inspector actually was. So, further thoughts?
He seemed to have Holmes' powers of intuition, and also had Holmes' power to theorize, to come up with a theory and then test it against the data to see if it would come forth.
Right.
And he didn't seem to come to conclusions before he had data. Remember, he hung out in the tree for a long time.
Right.
He just didn't jump to conclusions.
Exactly. Well, you don't want to be jumping in at that height of tree, so.
Yeah, right. But it was the exact opposite of Lestrade, who immediately would come up with a theory regardless of facts. And this guy was slow and reticent to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly because he was showed admiration for Holmes or something, but at one point then he stepped forth.
This second blood stain in the carpet that's nowhere near the original blood stain. That was another Lestrade.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, why Lestrade couldn't see that is beyond me. So, all right. Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
To me, we don't see him anymore, but Baines to me almost appears to be like an alter ego for Conan Doyle.
Could be.
He's an alter ego for Conan Doyle, and he decided he injected it once, but decided he didn't want to do it because he didn't want to move away from his his piece de resistance character in Holmes.
Well, it's interesting on these summaries and stuff. I included some illustrations from the Strand, I think it was. And you can find some of those when you go to the Arthur Conan Doyle Museum. It's arthur-conan-doyle.com. And if you go there and you go to each story, you can find some of the illustrations from the original magazines. And these were from an Arthur Tweedle. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. T-W-I-D-L-E. Arthur Tweedle, who did the illustrations for the Strand for this story. And some of the pictures of Inspector Baines, he does look kind of
Doylean.
Doylish. I think that's legitimate English right there. You take any word and put an ish and you turn it into an instant adjective.
Doylean, one of the two.
Yeah. Doylean. Okay, let's see if we can catch these other comments that have come up. If I had Wi-Fi here, I could do this from my iPad. Okay, so let's see. Earlier we had, so Claudia Riley said, found out San Pedro is in Belize, B-E-L-I-Z-E, which used to be British Honduras. First owned by Spain. Shoot. I'm trying to see more here, and I can't. So hopefully everybody else has read that. And they ended up a class war. Couldn't find any info on a Don Murillo, but probably a composite figure. I don't know that I can see more of this. And then John Thomas, that is what I said. Another Holmes that looked different and acted different, but still, I can't see it. So, yeah, we'll get to see all this ex post facto. And let's see, get us back together here.
That's you.
Right.
Yep.
He's talking to me.
Yep.
Oh.
So go look for this when you get home and check out Facebook and go look at the comments. And there's another one.
And the other thing is Baines might remind one of Mycroft too. A stout
Yeah.
person that except he said
As smart. Okay.
What?
That was another addendum
As
by
smart.
Claudia. As smart.
right. And the other thing is though is if Baines could remind one of Mycroft, except that he was much more active than Mycroft.
Oh, well,
I can't ever picture Mycroft in a tree.
no. Not even getting off the ground.
I mean, a two-step stool would be a radical
Oh,
for
mm,
Mycroft.
that would be like walking the steps of Metropolitan Square.
Or the
for
inside of
him.
the Washington Monument, like I
That
did
too,
in my
yeah.
uncle in the 50s.
Uh-huh.
We walked down them 864 steps.
Okay. Any more thoughts on Wisteria Lodge or Inspector Baines or anything else like that? Going once.
No, well, the only thing I'd say is this is another one of those stories where it falls into the two parts, and it doesn't take place in Holmes' environs, and so I think that's why the story doesn't get as much attention as a number of the other stories. The bright spot in it is Baines,
Yeah.
because he's there, but past that, the stories that seem to always have the most appeal to people are ones that take place in London and its environs, where Holmes is at his peak and where his inexhaustible knowledge of the city and the area, give him that vast advantage. And this is perhaps why in this, the way it was written, and there's not as much, Holmes doesn't do as much because he's not out of his depth, but he's certainly out of his area.
Yeah.
And Baines is there, but I love the classic Baines. When he sells Baines, he has the powers, but not the opportunities, because despite what Holmes says about there's crime in the country, in some of those smaller areas, not much happens.
But we got another one. Okay, let's see if we can get this other comment. It's gonna make me walk.
You gotta find
All you need to do is get some binoculars and you'll be good.
Well, that's an after. See, I hate this. I want to be there. Don't like being not able to be part of the discussion. Well,
Who's that from?
that's Claudia still. Yes. Well, sorry you're not here. We hope we can see you for the cardboard box.
Tell her to call in on Bragg's phone and he can.
Okay.
That's what we should do, is to really finish this thing out.
Miss you all. Nice to see you. And let's see, Mr. Is that Campbell?
What we need to do
like a
is
new picture.
you need to have everybody call in on a conference call. We could really be on. We have a conference call plus the video.
Let's see. That's Tom Campbell. Thanks. Okay. Yes. Thanks for coming with us, Mr. Campbell. And let's see. Okay. Before more comments, anything else to finish off with this? Okay. Well, you notice usually on these meetings we've got 4 different toasts or something like that. We have the toast to Her Majesty Queen Victoria. We have the toast to Sherlock Holmes. We have the toast to Dr. Watson. And we always close with a reading of 221B. Have a little problem here. We've only got 3 people. And we've already done something, so we're going to ask a special guest. Oh, we got another comment. I hate this. But this gives me an opportunity to move over here to do this. So, let's see. This says, happy to be here. Okay.
Now,
That's
who's that?
That's Mr. Tom Campbell.
Oh,
So anyway, we have asked Mr. Basil Rathbone to come over and read 221B to us, although we'll try to correct him when he gets to the view halloo. And so we'll all be upstanding for the toast to 221B. If I can find the play button on here. I hope I can find the play button. Here we go.
Together still 2-minute note. Who never lived, and so can never die. How very near they seem, yet how remote that age before the world went all awry. But still the game's afoot for those with ears attuned to catch the distant view.
Halloo!
England is England yet for all our fears. Only those things the heart believes are true. A yellow fog swirls past the window pane as night descends upon this fabled street. A lonely hansom splashes through the rain. The ghostly gas lamps fail at 20 feet. Here, though the world explode, these two survive. And it is always 1895.
Here, here.
God save the Queen. Here, here. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And we hope to see you next month. What is that date again? Get my notes. November the 16th for the cardboard box. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.